Hello and welcome to the final lesson of Islam practices, the final for the Islam section of work that we have been putting together for you. And today we are looking at the Islamic festivals. So jumping in then, we're going to have to understand which festivals it is that we're going to be looking at. Today we're going to look at Eid al-Adha, Eid al-Fitr and Ashura. Those are the three main festivals for Muslims. There are others as well, but those are the three most important that are recognised across the exam boards. Now, we're going to start off by looking at Eid al-Adha, which is often described as the festival of sacrifice. It remembers the story of Ibrahim. If you remember from 2 or 3 lessons ago, we spoke about the prophets and we spoke about the story of Ibrahim and how he was willing to sacrifice his son Ishmael for Allah. And at the end of that story, rather than sacrificing Ishmael, they sacrifice a ram instead. And this was a test of faith to show loyalty to Allah. Now, this is often performed at the end of the Hajj, which we spoke about in the last lesson. Now, why is it that they do this? Well, they do this at the end of Hajj because during the Hajj, they climb Mount Arafat, which is famously where Ibrahim was willing to sacrifice his son. It's where the sacrifice was going to take place. As well as the fact that during the Hajj, they will go to Muzdalifah. Again, from last lesson, we spoke about that Muslims, they will throw these stones at these pillars, casting out their sin, just like Ibrahim would cast out Shaitan in that story. And finally, the festival is performed at the end of Hajj so that they can perform some form of sacrifice. As is the end of the Ibrahim story, they wish to perform some sort of sacrifice again to show that they are loyal to Allah. Now, they want to do all of this, they want to copy exactly what Ibrahim did because he is a role model. As we saw, as this quotation says, Ibrahim became an intimate friend of Allah. And for any Muslim, they want to have the opportunity to achieve the same sort of thing. Now, how do they celebrate this? Now, in Islamic countries where animal sacrifice is allowed, you can sacrifice an animal and then you would spare that meat between yourself, your family, and those who might be in need. If you are in the UK, however, it might be that you buy an animal and send it off to be slaughtered, usually by a Muslim butcher, just allowing it to make sure that it's definitely halal because it has to be killed in a very particular way for it to be allowed within Islam. Now, with all this meat, then they're going to want to have some sort of feast. They're going to invite lots of family and friends over to partake in this feast together to celebrate this moment as a community, as that Muslim community of the Ummah. Now, they will also say special prayers. Now, on this day, they're going to want to say special prayers to Allah to show that they are loyal to Him, to show that they are thankful to everything that He gifts them in the same way that He gifts the sacrifice to Ibrahim. They feel as if everything they are given is given by God. So they're going to want to thank Him in those moments, as well as sort of showing their loyalty by following the practices as they should be. Now, in order to do this, they may go to the mosque. Going to the mosque by foot is going to be a very beneficial thing, for example, because again, it shows that you are willing to work hard for Allah. As we spoke about in the last lesson, we spoke about this concept of jihad, and greater jihad being that struggle for your faith, making things slightly harder for yourself. So if you wanted to perform jihad during this time, you might decide to walk to your mosque rather than drive, again, to show how loyal you are to Allah. Finally, then, they will also give gifts. This is because they want to celebrate that community, celebrate loyalty, and celebrate between each other exactly their relationship with God. They have managed to build up a loyal relationship where they are committed to the religion, and that's something they want to celebrate and will reward those who have managed to do so by giving them gifts to sort of heighten that level of celebration. When we look then at a 4-mark question, this can be slightly different across the exam boards, but generally they look for the same thing. Now, in an Islam practices question like this, where it's looking for the ways something can happen, it's a really nice structure to use here, where your point is going to be the action, your explain is then going to be why they do that particular action. Now, obviously you will do this twice because the question asks you to give 2 ways. So if you were under the AQA exam board, the development doesn't have to quite be as much. So therefore, you can see there's a very short and simple answer. There's an action there, and it's why they've done the action. The action of sacrificing an animal, well, it's remembering the story of Ibrahim. They go to the mosque, it shows they're loyal. You know, it's a really simple answer. Now, for other exam boards, This could be a little bit more developed, but again, doesn't have to be hugely developed. For this particular question, you might decide if you're Edexcel or OCR that you want to add in a little bit of a quotation just again to show you have a further understanding of the story of Ibrahim by using that quotation in there. Now you'll see that I haven't changed anything about my second explanation. It's detailed enough. This would be able to get you 4 marks under those exam boards as well. In terms of timing then, this shouldn't take you any more than 3 to 4 minutes. If you're going over a mark a minute, you're going to lose time when it comes to answering the bigger 12-mark questions, for example. So the amount of time that you can save on these smaller questions, you can add on then to the time you have to answer those big essay questions. We now need to look at Eid al-Fitr, which is commonly known as the breaking of the fast. This takes place then on the last sunset, on the last day of Ramadan. Now this is something that has, as time of recording this video, happened just over a week ago. It was last Monday, and sort of as to where I am now in terms of recording this video. And it's something that for many Muslims, again, is a celebration because what they have just done is extremely impressive. If you haven't watched last lesson, therefore don't know about the fasting of Saum during the month of Ramadan, then I recommend you go back and look at it. But as you'll know, it's a fasting of an entire month where they can't eat or drink anything during daylight hours. Now, this therefore means that they're going to want to celebrate the end of it because that is an extremely challenging thing to do, especially considering it's not an option. If you are medically capable of fasting, then you have to. It's something that's been prescribed for you. It's something that was put in place so that you can become mindful of Allah. So once you have completed that month and you have completed that challenge, you want to be able to celebrate by having that opportunity to break that fast, to eat when it is that you want to eat. So as a result of this then, we see again, they have this big feast. They've just spent a month not being able to eat what they want to eat when they want to eat it. So now they have this opportunity to have a large feast of anything they want, and they can eat that at any time. There's no particular time when this feast is going to take place because it could go into then the next day because it's a full 24-hour festival. Now, what commonly tends to happen is this feast then lasts a few days, mostly because they cook large amounts of food for this big feast, but because they've spent the last month fasting for so long, their stomachs have shrunk, and therefore the amount of food that they can consume is less than maybe what they prepare. So as a result of this, then they're going to want to gather with family and friends. They're going to want to bring those people into their household to share in that meal together so that the food can sort of be spread out evenly. They also are going to want to wear new clothes. This is a really special occasion because they are celebrating their success. If you imagine a rewards ceremony, whether it be the Oscars or something like that, they dress up very fancy for those occasions. And Muslims want to do the same things. They'll wear new clothes for this festival as sort of an act of celebration. But again, they will go to the mosque and have those special prayers. And in this case, it's usually to thank Allah for giving them the strength to actually complete this fast because it's an extremely challenging thing. So having the opportunity to say thank you for the strength and thank you for giving us that time to reflect upon you and to reflect upon ourselves, and thanking him then for giving them the abundance of what they now have for that feast. It's a really special event. Now, because it's with family and friends, often gifts are given. And this is because they want to reward each other for their successes of completing the month of Ramadan, completing the fast. Now, what you may notice is that there's a few here that seem to keep cropping back up. You have a bit of a safety net here, and this goes across all religious practices when it comes to festivals. They tend to have a similar sort of way of celebrating. One thing that you'll see time and time again, maybe for different reasons, is giving presents. In Eid al-Fitr, we see it as a reward. In Eid al-Adha, we see it as a sort of respect of showing love and loyalty amongst the family. If you were to look at Christianity, they give gifts at Christmas time. Even at Easter, they will give each other cards or gifts or Easter eggs maybe. What you'll also notice is that they have a feast of some sort. Now, again, in Islam, Eid al-Fitr celebrated with a big feast to celebrate the end of the fasting. Eid al-Adha, you've got that sacrifice that takes place, which then allows for a feast to take place. If you looked at Christian practices, you've got the Christmas dinner that the Western world tends to have You've got that idea of having that big roast dinner with everything. It's a tradition. Christians also do the same. When we look at Easter, you've got that Easter egg is a food type that is significant to that particular festival. Even in Judaism, when you look at the festival of Yom Kippur, they have that sweet honey bread, that sort of honey cake, which resembles the fact that they're going to have a sweet year after the new Jewish New Year. So a feast is always going to come up, as well as going to their place of worship. Now, for Muslims, they're going to go to the mosque. For Christians, they're going to go to the church. For Jews, they're going to go to the synagogue. But they go to their place of worship to be with their God, because usually these festivals have some level of connection to their God. It's in Eid al-Fitr, they're going there to thank God for giving them the strength. For Eid al-Adha, they're going there to show their loyalty. For Christians, they're going to go to the church to remember Jesus' birth or Jesus' death. They're always going to go to their place of worship to feel closer to the God that festival is usually celebrating. As well as then, there's going to give them an option to pray. Across these festivals, they're going to have a very emotional and spiritual connection to their God, and that's going to open up lines of communication. They're going to want to communicate with their gods in these moments of time. So for Muslims, they're going to want to pray to Allah, whether it be for thanks for giving them the strength to complete the fast, or whether it's to show their loyalty, whatever it might be, they're going to want to pray. Okay, so these ideas is crucial for you guys to remember, because if a question ever comes up about a festival and it's asking about the ways that they celebrate it, and you have a moment in the exam where you panic, these can be your get out of jail free cards. You can use these ideas to form your answers, because they are going to be used for pretty much any festival, apart from one. What we haven't yet looked at is the festival of Ashura. Now, for Shia Muslims, this is remembering the death of Muhammad's grandson Hussein during the Battle of Karbala. Now, Muhammad's grandson was Imam, and he was someone who was trying to reconcile the relationship between Shia and Sunnis. However, a war started between the two groups when somebody broke an agreement where they said there would be no more passing down of the next caliph. They wouldn't continue doing so. They were going to try and reband together Islam. However, Caliph Yazid sort of proceeded from the previous caliph, which broke that agreement, and this caused a big conflict. However, in this moment, Hussein and his family and the small group of people that he had with him got slaughtered. They were killed. Hussein had to watch as his family, his children, got killed in front of him. And so this isn't so much of a festival of celebration, but of mourning. This is a celebration. This is a remembering of someone's death and the sadness that comes with that. However, if you can remember the pain that comes with that story, it allows you to be reflective of how you live your life. And actually, according to some of the other imams, it's something that is a really important thing, because it can also protect you from hellfire. Those who feel empathy for Hussein are going to get themselves an entry into Jannah. Now, you'll notice here that these aren't quotation. This isn't a quotation from the Quran or from the Hadith or the Sunnah. This is actually a direct quote from an imam themselves. Now, they are still technically a source of authority. So in an exam question, you could still use this quote because of the fact that it is a source of authority. You can use quotations from people, from books. It doesn't matter where it is from, as long as it is someone that the religious follower is going to look up to, whether it be a book or a person. However, for Sunnis, this is going to look very differently. For Sunnis, this is remembering the Prophet Musa, who parted the Red Sea for the freedom of the Israelites after they escaped from slavery from Egypt under the possession of the Pharaoh. Now, this was a really important story for one of two reasons. Not only is it a celebration remembering, the exile of the slaves, allowing them to be free, but it's also a time to remember the opportunities that you have in your life and making sure that you make the right decisions. When the Israelites left Egypt and they crossed the Red Sea, they started to fall away from their relationship with God. And this is what brought about the Ten Commandments. So something that many Muslims want to remember during this time is the importance of moving away from your sin. They also like to remember the story of Noah, or Nuh, who landed the ark after the major world flood. This is a major story because the world flooded because of that sin that was brought about by humanity. Noah and his family and the animals all got saved on this large ark. Again, this celebration of the removal of sin from the world. And as a result of this, many Sunni Muslims see this as a day of sort of repentance and removing of that sin. And the way they do this is by doing the following practices. In Sunni Islam, for this more sort of joyful occasion, they will fast on this day. It's actually something that Muhammad himself did. And according to the Hadith, Muhammad had stated that it will effectively get rid of all of your sins from the past year. And so with this joyful occasion, there's festivals and carnivals, all sorts of stuff that Sunni Muslims will band together to do to celebrate these sort of amazing events. However, for Shia Muslims, this is a day of mourning. So in Shia countries, you will see all people wearing black. This idea of showing respect for the dead and showing that they are saddened by the death of Hussein. However, in some of these Islamic countries, it goes a step further. They will have a tendency to whip themselves and even cut their heads with razor blades. The idea of them losing their blood, just like Hussein lost his blood for his faith, they want to be able to do the same for theirs. However, this is a dying practice. This is something that is reducing in popularity. And in the UK and in the Western world, Shia Muslims will have a tendency to donate their blood, to show that they are still giving their blood for their religion, still doing something which is quite a challenging thing to do, because there's all sorts of dangers that can come with donating blood, but they're still doing so for their faith, to help their community in situations where they may need a blood transfusion, for example. Now, I'm not going to go over a Big 12 marker, and as you may have noticed, there's been no camera in this video, and this is because I'm recording this whilst away, so I thought I would throw together this lesson on festivals for you, so you have the key information about each of the festivals, as well as some helpful tips as to how to answer some of the other exam questions that you may see based around these festivals. This has been then the last lesson on Islam for now. There may be an opportunity to make some more in the future, but next week, you will start seeing some of the themes lessons come through. So that will be the next topic for you to see. If you have any recommendations, if you have any requests, please do let me know in the community page, and I can make sure to include those for you in the future lessons. Thank you very much, and I will see you next week.